So this is 6 p.m. my time. So let's begin. And today I would like to speak to you about how restarting activity and using TOC, theory of constraint, to do that. How theory of constraint can really support you restarting your activity and getting the best of what you have or the market have in this new context, and how it can help you. So first, some logistics. You can ask questions in the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. You will see all the questions of the other participants, so you can upvote a question if you want to give it more priority. If you want, I will answer the question at the end of the presentation, but you can write a question at any moment. Thank you anyway to keep the question in the question and answer and not in the chat. At the end, I will also launch a poll. I will thank you in advance for participating because it gives me a good feedback to know how to improve. And also it will ask you some question about how you prefer, which format you would prefer for the future. This webinar is recorded and it will be published, and you will receive a link to be able to see it again later. So the content of today, what I will speak about today, first I will explain what is the new context, how I see the new context and what are the consequences. Then I will explain what is theory of constraint, TOC, in a small introduction, explain the principles and explain tools that we use in TOC. Then we will see what you should expect from using TOC. And I will try to answer to some questions that are very often put to me is TOC for me and why should I use it? Then we should review what TOC do and what TOC advise you to do in some of the issues that you may face now due to this context. I mean, if your market really decrease and we have extra capacity, then in that case, the constraint is in the market, as we say, and how to react to that, what to do. If the constraint move from production, for example, to knowledge workers, because of the new organization, because you have people working from home, this changes several things, and maybe you have a new constraint that appear. And the other case, the market may have shift. People get new habits. They are purchasing online, they are not going more to stores, they must purchase other things, they have other priorities, and well, your market shift, it is still not a constraint, but you have to adapt to that. And at the end, a bonus, let's say a surprise bonus, a bonus from using TOC. What can it bring you more? Let's begin by, we are facing a unique challenge. We never had this before. Never the world economy was stopped for nearly 4 months. And in the same time, as we locked down nearly 2/3 of the world population, most of the knowledge workers of the world participate to a big experiment of remote working. Some companies were ready, others not, and this has changed a lot of things in the way we work, the way we interface one with the other, we interact, the way of managing meetings, and not always for the good. From time to time, what we have made is simply cope with the situation, and it's still not perfect. So this new organization of work, this stop of economy brought new constraints, and they are appearing. We are facing them, even if some people doesn't recognize them as a constraint. The context have changed, and we have to adapt to it. For some, the demand vanished. Look at airways companies. The demand is no more here. We think that it will come back in 2025. So you have to live in between. You have to adapt to that new demand or that diminished demand. If you are lucky, the demand of your product only diminished. It didn't disappear. For many people, it's vanished from the day to the other, no market. The habits of the consumer have changed. People, when they were locked down, realized that maybe they don't need all this fancy smartphone, this last version of I don't know which, and the last fashion clothes. So they changed their habits, and now the market shift is different. And you have to face this also. These are things that you cannot change. You have simply to react to that and to work with that. Now, something which is tricky, everybody was requesting governments to give a support policy, to give a lot of money, and the government put a lot of money. We generated nearly 10% of the worldwide GDP, in subsidies from nowhere. And we don't know what this will do to the global economy, because not every country had the right to generate so much money. And support policy also from government modifies the rules of concurrence. If you have some companies, and mostly the biggest company has the biggest help, the smallest company has nearly none to no help at all. So this means that also the concurrence rules have changed. Suddenly some get help, others less or none. So your concurrence ground is no more the same, and once again you have to adapt to that. Europe and United States are launching strategy for bring back home industrial activities. This means what? Critical activities like mask, medicine. We saw that we were very fragile, that we were exposed to failure of a country. In this case, it was China. And some government decide that we have to bring them home, at least in our zone, economical zone for Europe, for example. But a lot of activities will come back home, and this will make another change on market that you have to adapt it, because it may be different. Your supply chain may be totally revolutionized by this. Now, this was the context. This is a new world. And let me first introduce you what is the theory of constraints. A lot of people, and I had a reaction of someone recently who tell me, oh, I don't know, I don't want to know, I don't like the name. It looked like theory of conspiracy. Well, it's not the same. For a scientist, a theory is a framework, something that is self-sufficient and allow you to predict the outcome of systems given some conditions of work. And this is how we understand theory. It's like theory of relativity. This is serious things, this is scientific things, and theory of constraint is very logical, and you will see that in what I will explain later. The theory of constraint is a pragmatic approach. It's very to the ground, very hands-on. We are not giving advice that is from nothing from thin air. No, it's really logic. It's really well thought. It's really to the ground, and it is made to have immediate improvement that you can see, because practitioners of TOC knows that if they can demonstrate immediately that there is benefits and that the benefits come quickly, then the people who try to apply TOC become raving fans, and they will want to go on. We have no risk of refusal. The theory of constraint first appeared in one book, very well known, called The Goal by Dr. Eli Goldratt. Goldratt was the inventor of the theory of constraint, and it was released in 1984. First, and the goal is describing this kind of application, it was applied to manufacturing and production. Then the application began to extend to all kinds of domains like sales, marketing, and this was also the object of the second book, project and portfolios of projects. This was also the object of another book, retail, distribution, even in healthcare, services, consultancy, to many, many other activities are now applying, and all successfully, TOC. TOC is used in different sizes of companies. It goes from large group, Boeing, General Motors, Tata Steel. Tata Steel was one of the first to really speak how they develop a viable vision, and US Air Force. So these are big entities, but also small business. We have a lot of stories of witness from local pastries, local activities that is using TOC and get a great return on their investment, mainly their investment being their time. Now, what are the principles that TOC is giving or is based on? The first one is that the goal of a company is to make money now and even more in the future. This is not the last capitalistic declaration. It's not capitalistic at all. It only says that if your company doesn't make money, it will not survive. So you will not be there to speak about it. And this means also that everything that you want to measure can be brought by money. So you can compare. If you measure all the things through the same unit, you can compare them. Another thing very important is say now and even more in the future. So this is not something that is a quick win and then you forget about it. It's a totally different mindset that you will have to adopt, and then it will help you improve on a continuous, a virtuous circle of improvement. Second, and it's very important, the output of every system is limited by one and only one constraint at a given time. You may have heard a lot about the chain analogies. This means if you try to push a chain, it will break not on 10 links, on one link, the weakest link. Every chain has one weakest link. This is limited in strength. And every system has only one limit, not two. If someone tells that he has 2 or 3 bottlenecks, this is not totally true. He can have the impression, because they are so close one to the other, that by the mere statistical variation, then the bottleneck goes from one machine to the other. This can happen, but at one given time, only one limit exists on your system. And it's by making the most of this limit and managing well this limit that TOC teach you how to make the most of your system. Any system, as complex as it may seem, is in fact based on an inherent simplicity. In fact, it's more or less a consequence of the previous one. If your system is limited by only one constraint, this means that only managing that constraint allows you to manage the system. So you don't have to look anymore to tens of indicators. You only have to look to one place. This is why, in fact, TOC is the theory of focus. It gives you the focus on what is important and what brings impact on your profit. A very important thing is the sum of local optima is lower than a global optimum. Why? I had a client some times ago, nearly 2 years ago. He wanted to make automation of process. It was the trend at that time in his industry. Nobody was surviving without saying that they were automatizing a lot of things. So he automatized one process. He spent money to that, and in fact, well, this brings a very beautiful local optimum that didn't brought anything to his profit. Nothing at all. And even more, this local optimum simply moved the load to another department that was not really ready for that, and suddenly another constraint surfaced. And in fact, even his automation brought a lower profit. So local optimum can even be your evil, your worst choice. Another thing very important, the work is done by people. Even if you speak about robots, automatization, but in fine, at the end, the work is done by people for people. And people in your organization want to do well. They are not wanting to sabotage, it doesn't exist. Maybe you didn't explain well how they can do what you request them to do, and they didn't understand, but normally they want to do well, and what they do, they think logically. This means if you explain something using logical thinking, they will understand, and they may buy in your idea. Now, very important, and I know that this is very difficult to admit if you are more on in a Latin country or a Latin culture. Every conflict has a win-win solution, and there is always space for improvement. If people work with quality, they understand that there always space for improvement. But win-win solution, many people, and you can meet them every day, many people think that in order for them to win, somebody else has to lose. And TOC teach you how to never enter in that bias that only bring tension in a relationship. In order to bring a successful and long relationship with someone, a supplier, a client, or a partner, you have to bring and to develop win-win solution. Now, the tools. In fact, and this is my way of thinking, I think there's 3 categories of tools. The first is, what are the most accessible tools? Is, by my experience, is the one that when you explain in 5 minutes, people understand how it works and agree that it can bring something. Those tools are the 5 focusing steps of continuous improvement. I will detail them later. And the change process is 4 steps, is reasonably classical, and the buying process, and you will see that this is totally logical and very useful. Then you have what I call the advanced tools. This is the logical thinking process. This is a system of logical trees based on cause-effect relationship. I will show you example, and I will show how to build them later quickly, but this allow you to evaluate situation, evaluate solutions, and have a great communication tool in order to communicate your conclusion to others. Then we have the throughput accounting. This is a set of financial indicators to analyze your situation, your performance, that support decisions that are really different from cost accounting. And we will see one example later, and you will see that it gives you a totally different approach and a totally different insight of your business. Then there is a mafia offer. Mafia offer, you can define it by an offer that your concurrents cannot match and that transforms your client into raving fans. This means the kind of offer when your client, when you see, you say, wow. And this is what we try to do, but not only. And then we have the methodologies. Methodologies are more complex framework. Often they are derived from the other tools, from the conclusion of the other tools, and they are a more complete system of tools, rules, principles that when you apply that framework to a situation, we get an improvement. For example, drum buffer rope, which we will detail a little bit later, which is linked with production. We have also dynamic buffer management, which is linked with logistics, critical chain project management, and critical chain project portfolio management. Those two I will not develop later because we will not use them in the whole presentation. These are very powerful, very easy to implement. Critical chain maybe a little bit less, but all the others are really easy to implement and very powerful, and you will see that. The first one is not from the most approachable tools, it's from the advanced, because we will refer to them a lot, even when I will present the main tools. The logical thinking process. It's composed of several trees. The first one being the strategy and tactics tree. It details the strategy and the necessary conditions to achieve it. This is a very useful tree, a little bit difficult maybe to prepare. Very few companies prepare it, but a wonderful tool for communication with your team and alignment of your whole organization. It's really something that you must do at the level of the organization, not at the level of one issue. Then you have the current reality tree. This is maybe the most simple to do and really useful. With that, you will identify, describe an issue and describe the cause of a situation. You can detect the root cause that create undesirable effects. And with that, when you identify the cause of the situation, then you begin to try to bring solutions, and then by injecting this solution in the current reality tree, you will, and maybe using also the evaporating cloud with described dilemmas and conflict, when you use those two, find solution, inject those solutions in the current reality tree, you arrive to the future reality tree. This logic construction serves to predict the effects of a set of solutions within known conditions. Then you have prerequisite tree. I will not detail them later, but it's very simple. It's identify obstacle and blocking conditions and how to supersede these obstacles. And transition tree, which in fact is preparing your plan for change or your planning for a project. This is really a planning, like a work breakdown structure, in fact, very close to the work breakdown structure in its philosophy. Now, strategy and tactics tree. It is made to answer the following question. Every change that I have to make to improve a part of my organization, how does it fit in the global vision, in the global plan to improve the whole organization? How does this participate to the improvement of the global system? And these three give you the answer. What does it bring to my objective? What shall I do? If you look at the change, this means one of those boxes. If you look above, is how it will contribute to your objective. If you look below, what I have to do for the change to happen. And this is a wonderful communication tool. I will not detail more than that because it's not the main tool that will be used in that urgency and that new context that we have now, even if it should be really helpful. Now let's make an example of current reality tree. You are a fruit juice producer and you want to purchase some labels to your fruit juice. And this means what? Means that you have on the current situation some undesirable effects, and that this is as a free. So you begin by that, determining what are the undesirable effects you see in that situation. We need to place urgent order at high price when we are lacking some labels. We have so much label because we have a huge stock of labels. We have so much labels that marketing cannot launch any new campaign because we will lose the the other label. So we want to use the label we have first, and then we reorder so big quantity that it prevents us to be very flexible. When you have your undesirable effect, you will work on linking at least two of them. It can have some intermediary paths. Then you try to link with the other undesirable effects that you have. Then you go on developing the logic in order to reach a full analysis of the system, and hopefully, in fact, you will stop when you found some root cause, or at least some cause when you can act. And by acting on them, you will simply change the logic and change the result, and change the undesirable effect into desirable effect. Now that we have this tree, we try to find solution and inject them inside the tree. And this will give us a future reality tree. How? We have two inserts that, in fact, the setup has no actual cost, because a setup for a printer doesn't cost anything. And a solution is to create a link of data between the fruit juice producer and the printer. And you bring back all the logic, you rebuild the logic, and the logic arrive in situation where instead of having undesirable effect, you have desirable effect, because the setup having no actual cost, in that case, you can make smaller order, and this means that they don't need a big stock, but we will speak about that even later in a specific case. But this is how you build a future reality tree. It allows you to test what your idea, what your solution will bring and will change the situation, and how it will react. It will give as a result some desirable effect. It can even give some side effect. For example, our financial burden for inventory is reduced, was not in the current reality tree because it was not detected at that time. It could have been, and suddenly it becomes a favorable effect. So this is how is made the future reality tree. The evaporating cloud that we discussed before is very simple. You extract from the current reality tree one conflict, because, and this is a very actual one, a very present one. If you want to manage pandemic and you have a scarcity of masks, like we had in France, for example, well, on one side, you have to protect population by making people use masks. And for that, you must give masks to population. But you have a scarcity of masks. On the same time, you must protect healthcare professionals by reserving masks for them, because they are the ones who are in front of the illness all the time, so they should be protected first. And for that, as you have a scarcity of masks, you must not give masks to population. You're in front of a conflict, and in fact, most of the government were facing that conflict, and well, we cannot say that most of them really handled it very well, but that's it. So evaporating cloud is really a way of communicating also about a conflict. When you make that, you have to review every case, every box, every arrow, every relationship, and question them all the time. Are they real or not? Are they really linked? Is that relationship exist, or is it because we always have done like that, or we think it's logical? And I can assume that you will find one arrow or one box that is not correct, and suddenly you will be able to develop a solution from that point. So now that we have seen that tool of the logical thinking process, we will look at really the tools that normally we use from the very beginning when a practitioner of TOC arrives in a company, he uses this first. The 5 focusing steps of continuous improvement. You will see it's very simple. We have said that every system is limited by one bottleneck, one constraint. So the first step is identify the constraint. When you identify the constraint, you must decide how you will manage, exploit the constraint. Then you go to subordinate everything to the previous decision. This means all your system must work to make the maximum from the constraint, because what the constraint is doing is what the system is producing. You cannot produce more than the constraint is doing, because it is a constraint, by definition. And this is continuous improvement. This means then you should elevate the constraint. This means, and we will see ways of doing it in a specific case a little bit later. Elevate the constraint. So, and maybe at that time, your constraint is no more a constraint. The constraint moves. It's like a chain. You want to make it stronger. You take the weakest link, you put more metal on it. But at one point, by putting metal, this is no more the weakest link. So you must detect which one becomes the weakest link, and the next metal you put on that one, not on the previous one. And then don't stop. Don't be the constraint yourself. Don't stop there. It should be a continuous improvement. You make the first step, you make the first cycle, go on. Find the new constraint or verify that the former constraint is still a constraint and start again. See how you can exploit even better, how you can better subordinate everything, how you can elevate. And elevate doesn't mean investing. There are many other ways, and I will explain it later. And this is the classical way of representing the 5 focusing steps. The change process, very easy, very classical. Why change? What to change? What to change to? How make the change happen? Well, you should ask me maybe, well, I already heard that tens of times. Theory of constraint is not very original with that. Well, where we are maybe different from others is how we answer to that. To why to change? We have the strategic and tactics tree and the current reality tree. What to change? The current reality tree will tell us. What to change to? The future reality tree tells us. How make the change happen? Prerequisite tree, transition tree will tell us. So we have all the tools in the logical thinking process in order to fully answer to those 4 questions. You must see these 4 questions as being the discipline of change. If you cannot answer to those 4 questions, don't start the change. You are not ready. When you have the answer, you can start, because you know at that time that you have all the chance to succeed. And to give you even more chance to succeed, we have the buying process. The buying process is composed of levels of resistance. And you will see that you will recognize those levels of resistance easily. The first one, I don't agree with your agenda. I don't agree that the objective is what you say. Don't tell me that you have not met this once in your life. People say, no, your objective is that. No, my objective is something else. So I don't agree with you. And the second, when they agree with your agenda, oh, I don't agree that the problem is what you are saying it is. Even more, they say, oh, the problem, no, it's not what you say. Maybe the problem should be in my part. No, the problem is somewhere else. Or maybe they don't want to agree on the problem in order to protect themselves, or maybe they don't see the problem, or they see it only partially. so they don't understand it fully, and maybe also because they don't understand the root cause. I don't agree that the solution you are presenting is going in the right direction to get us a workable answer. This mainly happens when you propose something that is not in line with what we used to do for the last 20 years. When you say, oh, we should change this. I know that we were doing that for the last 20 years, but we should change and maybe do things differently. Oh, no, this is not a solution. All of you have made this. I'm sure of it. The next one, I don't accept that the benefit you claim your solution will bring will actually materialize. This means, well, okay, your solution may go in the right direction, but you say if we do that. No, maybe we do this, the first one, but the other two now. So maybe it will not be sufficient to make the change. Then, well, there may be negative side effect to your proposed solution. And the last one, I don't think we can overcome the obstacle of your proposed plan, that people will put obstacles and we will not be able to overcome them. And again, theory of constraint with a logical thinking process bring answers to that. So if you face someone that don't agree with your agenda, use a strategy and tactics tree. It gives you all the rationale of making change and where you want to go. So it gives all the details about your agenda, and it's easy to develop it and to explain it, to go through it and to agree and to convince that person, because that person, as we said at the beginning, has a natural way of thinking logically. Then, if they don't agree on the problem, go to the current reality tree and evaporating cloud. And if you go through it, you go through everything. Maybe they will contest some part of your current reality tree. It will be the good opportunity to improve it. But at least you will be able to explain in the problem and to agree on the problem. For the solution, for the free resistance about the solution, the future reality tree will give you the solution. If there is some negative side effect, that is true, then if you didn't put them in your future reality tree, you should add that branch. We call it a negative reservation branch, and you should see if you need to add an injection, a solution, an additional part of your solution in order to resolve that negative side effect. And about the obstacle, prerequisite tree and transition tree are exactly made for that. That binding process, you use it to explain a change that is necessary, to explain a problem, or to sell. If you want to sell a solution to someone, use this, because you will have to face all those resistance most of the time. And I'm sure that you're recognizing that lot of resistance that you had in many ideas that you brought to your business. Then we have another tool, which is a financial tool, because we say that the goal of the company is to make money, so we must have some indicators in order to follow that. And they may be a little bit different, even if their name is known. We have in fact three main indicators. Throughput, the rate at which the system converts inventory into sales and profit. This means mostly if you are building something, it's the price of sales minus the material, the direct material, or the sub-assemblies that you purchase already made in order to integrate directly in your product. There is no direct salary in the throughput. This is a big, big difference. No direct salaries. And you will see that this changes a lot of things. Operating expense. This is whatever money that the system used to convert inventory into sales and profit. Well, I see that I have a typo here, but it is every money, this means salaries. And there is no direct salaries because even if you don't produce, you pay your salaries. Then you will have your electricity, rent, licenses, these kind of things. Then you have inventory. The inventory is the money tied up in the system, what it covers, and is totally different from inventory from cost accounting. The money tied up in the system means raw material, work in progress, finished good not yet sold, but also investments. You purchase a machine that costs 1 million, 1 million goes in your inventory. No depreciation, nothing like that. This means what? If you use this to make a, how to say, a combined indicator, you go to return on inventory, which is simply throughput minus operating expense, which is net profit, divided by inventory. This is a way that demonstrates how efficiently your system transforms money, use the money to transform material into profit. This is some kind of efficiency indicators for your system, financial efficiency. Because if you have to keep a big work in process, then it decreases the efficiency. If you are lean, it will improve the efficiency. Now, a good decisions that you can take, because this is made to take decision, is not to report, to calculate your tax, is to make decision, pragmatic decisions. A good decision should result in increase throughput, diminish OE, and diminish inventory. One important thing, in cost accounting, the most important action that you may have is diminish cost. Here, it is much more important to decrease inventory than to decrease operating expense. Cost cutting is something that we don't hear so often with TOC. And we will demonstrate this later. So what are the difference between cost accounting and throughput accounting? Outside the fact that they are really not made to the same thing, cost accounting is to calculate your tax and to maximize your tax. In fact, throughput accounting is to take decisions. So first, direct salaries are part of the cost of sales and production cost. Well, this would mean normally that if you don't produce, you don't pay salaries. I don't think this is the case. So this is one of the main issues I have with cost accounting. Work in progress is an asset. This also is doubtful. Workers as a liability. They are the first thing we cut. To have workers is a liability because it's salaries, it costs, and the first cost cutting we have is always lay off people. The impact of investment is underestimated because of depreciation. If you make an investment, in fact, you only look at the impact of what the depreciation have on the net profit. You don't look at what exactly the impact of the investment have on the big picture. Decreasing cost is the main tool to improve the situation. The increase of work in process, no impact on indicators. And you have to monitor a lot of indicators to make a decision. While in throughput accounting, all salaries are part of operating expense. Simpler, you don't have to think salary, operating expense. No direct, no indirect, or no direct one day, indirect the other day. No, all operating expense. Treat equal. Work in progress is not an asset, it's a silent killer. It kills you, it can kill you because it will suck all your cash and suddenly you will remain without cash but with assets that you cannot sell immediately. So what do? it can kill you. It can kill you, sorry. Workers are an asset, because without them, you will not produce. So you will not work, you will not give anything. The investments are fully impacting the accounts because they are taken globally in inventory. The decreasing cost, well, it doesn't impact so much on indicator or return on inventory. An increase of inventory really impact and badly damage the indicators. And you have only one indicator to look, not 10, not 20, one. 3 indicators and one composite indicator. That's all. Very simple, and the definition, once you get used to them, really logical. We will see later how to use when we arrive at the applications. Drum buffer rope is a way of managing a process to maximize the output of that process. This means we want to maximize the output recognizing the buffer, the bottleneck, and diminishing the work in progress to have less money tied up in the system, and focusing on simplifying the process. If you have a process of 20 machines, you have only one bottleneck, and you should look at that bottleneck, not at all the non-bottleneck all the time. But if you use the normal way of managing process, you will look at every step, managing given OEE for all the steps, etc. No, here you look at the bottleneck, because the bottleneck is given the rate of production. The bottleneck is your drum, like in the boat during the Roman, the antiquities, the Roman time. The guy who was with a drum to make the rhythm of the rowers. This is exactly the same. Your bottleneck, your constraint is the drum. It gives you the rate of conversion of work in progress into finished product. You cannot go quicker. You can go slower, you cannot go quicker. Then, if you want a bottleneck to work, in fact, you want it to work all the time, because 1 minute lost at the bottleneck is 1 minute lost for the whole system, because this is the drum of the whole system. So if it stops, the system stops. If the bottleneck doesn't produce, the system doesn't produce. Nobody will take the place of the bottleneck. So you cannot recover from a stop of bottleneck. So you must make everything that it never lack material to be treated. So you must make a buffer of product in front. And this is exactly the part of what we call exploiting the constraint in the file focusing step, is exactly part of that. Now the rope. Well, if we push material in a process with a bottleneck, what will happen? Work in process will pile in front of the bottleneck. Will pile so much that we may have issues of quality hidden in that mass of work, and we have a lot of money tied up in that work in process, and it's useless. So rope is a way of going to a pull system. This means the bottleneck being the art, the core, and giving the rhythm of the production. We also call new material inside the process. You will enter material inside the process on the same rate that the bottleneck is consuming it. And this will allow you to keep the buffer still intact, but to also to protect the bottleneck, but also to not overload the system with work in progress that could kill you and put a burden on your finance unnecessarily. No, when you are exiting from the lockdown, a lot of companies have a lot of stock, a lot of work in process, and they feel in their skin that this working process is money tied up in the system and blocked, that you cannot use to make other things, to improve, to launch campaign of marketing, to do whatever will help you survive. And this rope step is part of the subordinating everything to the previous decisions of exploiting the constraint. So you see now how this link with the 5 focusing steps. Now, another very good tool is DBM, Dynamic Buffer Management. This allows to manage your inventory, raw material or finished product in order to avoid overstocking, tying up financial resource, but at the same time improving the level of service to the client. This is what you decide of a stock. You divide it in 3 parts equal, green, yellow, red. The total inventory, the total stock, is determined by how much you sell, at what, every week, every month, what is your production, cycle time, takt time, what is your supply chain to get your product again, and based on that, you determine a first stock. Then you begin to work. So either you consume by selling if it is finished product, or you consume by producing if it's raw material. At regular interval, you look at where you are, and if you are in the green, well, you compensate either with production if it is finished product, or by ordering if it is raw material. You compensate the actual consumption, nothing less, nothing more. But if your inventory remain in that green zone for more than 3 successive periods, then this means that simply you are overstocking. You have too much stock. So you should begin to decrease your stock, and you decrease by 1/3. And the resulting, you redivide in 3, green, yellow, red, and you go. If the inventory arrives in the yellow, you don't do anything except compensate the actual consumption. If it brings you in the red, you compensate and then you increase. If it arrives 3 times, you increase your inventory in order to adapt your inventory, because this means that the demand for that part, raw material or finished product, is bigger than what you forecast, that's what you design your inventory for, and that you must increase it in order to absorb any variation and to be sure to be able to deliver. This mechanism allows you to quickly adapt your inventory to the real need of your system, nothing less, nothing more, and to, in fact, to tie up only the necessary money in your inventory and to keep all the remaining for the other activities. For example, it can be a little bit counterintuitive, this kind of solution for logistics, because most of the time, if you have a distribution center that deserves several stores, and in the stores you have some stock out, you will want to push more product in the stores. And in fact, by pushing more product in the stores, you will not solve the issue. You will still have stock out, but will have tied up more money in the system. In fact, by dividing your stock by 2, not by multiplying it by 2, and keeping the stock as far as possible on the distribution center and only distributing and using dynamic buffer management at the level of the store, you will increase the service to the client because you will not have any more stock out, and you will decrease your inventory. I'm available to any of you who wants to really discuss that in detail. It's really powerful. It's a really wonderful solution and totally logical. So we have those solutions. It's really beautiful. It seems logic. Now, well, if I apply TOC, what should I expect? And can you demonstrate that this is really what I can expect? Well, we had a study. A study had been made by Victoria University in New Zealand, and they analyzed more than 100 applications of TOC. It was international company, but also local stores. Every size, every kind of activity, production, it's true that at that time was more production, but also some administrative process, everything was included in that study. It excludes some applications. One, for example, Lucent Technology, because they obtained 600% improvement in profit in 12 months. Well, this was so big and so different from the other that it was taken out. The English national health system also used, but it's more difficult to give some figures. And anyway, it was still starting the implementation when the study was made. So all that we're taking out. But this gives some interesting results. First, majority of applications are only partial. Either it's a part of the company or a small set of tools, but mostly it's partial. But it works. And all applications have seen positive impacts and quick and significant improvement of the performance in less than 1 year. So immediate result, immediate positive impact in your activities. And what impact they have seen? This is the average on the 98 applications that were remaining. Nearly 70% improvement in lead time, 66% in cycle time reduction, 60% in due date performance, and what I told you, 50% reduction of the inventory level, 60% on revenue increase because they were able to manage their bottleneck and sell more without investing. Remember, this in a very short cycle of time, so there is no place to make a big investment to obtain those improvements. Those improvements are not relying on big investment. This is not the case. This is making the most of what you already have and maybe not used perfectly. And when I will give you an example, you will see that there are things that can be really spectacular. So, is it for you? This is a question that I had several times. Oh, it seems complicated, it's complex. Is it really for me? No, it's simple. It can be applied by an international group, a department of a group, a department of a small company, a small and medium enterprise, a local pastry shop, or a self-employed consultant, I apply myself, and even you in your life. I know, and there was an example in the book The Goal, using the theory of constraint in order to solve an issue inside a family. TOC doesn't need a first investment in equipment of software. You can have a software. There are some software for TOC, not so much, but there are some. You may discover that you need some equipment, but not so much. TOC is based on logic. What it needs is an open mind, because you will see some of the conclusions are really counterintuitive. Logical thinking, no gut feeling, no, we do that since 20 years, no way. It's logical thinking. Always put everything in question and go logical. The main investment will be your time. And the return of investment is incredible for you. You will see exceeding any expectation in improvement and return in money. Now, why you should adopt TOC? First, because the context has changed. Doing more what you were doing before, you know that it will not work. So it doesn't guarantee you any future for your company. No, you have to build what will be the future of your company. Something is now limiting your profit. It can be in the market, it can be in your production, it can be your white collars, it can be something else. Something is limiting your profit because your profit is not infinite, so it's limited. TOC allows you to identify this thing and to manage it to make the most profit that you can with these conditions. TOC gives you the tools to grow. You should, in that situation, that context, I hear many people say, look, what we now have to do is to survive. Then we will see if we grow or not. No, you should look now how to grow, because all the companies, all your competitors that are focusing now on surviving are letting you free ground for your growth. They are all looking at themselves, looking at their own belly, looking at their own activity, don't looking at the exterior, at what are the opportunity, because every time there is some opportunity. So you should seize the opportunity and grow. And TOC can give you the tools and the approach to do that. And they will not even, your competitor will not even understand what is happening and why suddenly they see you far in front of them. So what you should expect? Increase your focus on what is important and simplify your management. Because by increasing your focus, you only look at what really have impact. You are no more disturbed by things that seems to be important, but are not really important. Increase your profit. Yeah, it is anyway, it is how you will measure your success. Make easier and more powerful decisions. Manage your business with less but more reliable indicators, and you will see that on some example later. Decrease your inventory, release this cash, and use it for other things and to grow again. Increase the reliability of your delivery date in order to be seen by your client like someone who say and make what he say, who walk the talk. I always like this sentence, walk the talk. If you say that you deliver, you deliver. You walk the talk, and when you have that reputation with your clients become raving fans. They are your fans. They will speak of you and bring you more clients. Increase your sales and transform your clients into raving fans. This is really important. Now, let's see how to apply. We say that now in that situation, not new context, most of us face an issue with the market. The market decreased, the market changed. Maybe for some it's vanished. So yeah, the constraint now is in the market. If you are recognizing your situation in this, listen, maybe we may bring you some insight. Look, first symptom, the market collapsed during the lockdown, disappeared. The demand is now only a fraction of what it was before, and you don't see any hint that it will recover soon. Your capacity of production is far exceeding the demand. I mean, you don't have any more constraints in your production. It's really classical. Before you had a bottleneck in your production, you were to organize or to push in order to have your product out of your door. Now the problem is nobody wants your product. Nobody. Few people want your product, not as much as before. So you have all your capacity of production sitting there, idle. What to do with it? Your costs are even the same. They can even be higher. You have to purchase masks, hydroalcoholic gel, etc. This increases your cost, but your sales diminished. So what usually you should do? Well, adapt your capacity to demand. Is what exactly cost accounting tell you. If you have some equipment you don't use anymore, sell it. Your workers, liability, get rid of them. This is too much. You will not have to pay any more salaries. Wait for the market to restart and then redevelop again your company from that new state that you have, which is totally downgraded compared with what you had before. So in fact, forget about what you have done the last 10 years. Go back to what you were at the beginning, a small company, and redevelop from there. Totally scrap your capacity and see what you can do and if you can survive. Well, theory of constraint, TOC, has another proposal for you if you are in that case, and let's see what it is. First, use throughput accounting to support your decision, because maybe by decreasing your inventory, you will release cash and this will help you to pass that bad moment that we are. Don't enter in cost-cutting mode. If you want to downgrade your company, make it knowing exactly what you are doing. Don't use that false excuse that, oh, the first thing to do is to cut cost, because simply it will jeopardize all your future. It will downgrade your company and begin a vicious circle. Use dynamic buffer management. We have seen dynamic buffer management allow you to cut your inventory while increasing the service. By cutting your inventory, you increase your cash available. Do that. First thing to do, don't throw people away. Cut your inventory. Use a current reality tree. Build from the point of view of your client to understand what is his new pain. Because if the market disappears, it's because there is a new pain somewhere else and you must discover it. When you discover it with a current reality tree, you will be able to know how to tackle this pain, and you will be able to use a future reality tree to evaluate your solution and predict the effect. Now, build an irrefusable offer, what we call a mafia offer, to address that pain of your client in a way that was not done before. So now let's at what we discussed before. We made a current reality tree for a fruit juice producer in its relationship with his label producer, printer. Now let's imagine you're the printer and you say, okay, cost accounting tell me that setup is a cost. Throughput accounting tell me that setup is not a cost, because the cost that cost accounting is taking into consideration are salaries, hours. But anyway, these are hours that I should pay anyway. So there is no extra cost to make a setup. And I have extra capacity. So I should go on making this working. I should go on using this capacity to make a better offer, the kind of offer that the client, when he will see, say, wow, nobody told me that before. Why you didn't do it before? So what could be that solution? Let's say you go to your client, the fruit juice producer, and say, look, guy, you have for the time being 6 months of inventory. I know also another example, which is the producer of some, the eggs when they are toys for Kinder Surprise, and they produce the toys in January. The producer of the Kinder orders the toys in January for what they will release in December. So they have 6 months to produce and 6 months of inventory. This is a huge inventory, a lot of money tied up. If you go and say, look, you tell me every week what you consume, and 2 weeks later, I will give you what you have consumed. So this means that at that time, you only need to keep, let's say, 3 weeks of inventory plus the safety multiplied by 2, 6 weeks of inventory. 6 weeks of inventory is not 6 months, it's much lower, and they will be able to to have more flexibility doing marketing campaign, etc. It will help them. So this is a kind of offer that you can build when you made that analysis. And this kind of offer, I don't know one client, especially now in this situation, when say, look guys, I will make you save money. You will stop tying up your money inside inventory. You will release your inventory. You will not have any more stock out of labels, and you will be more flexible. Why? How you should refuse that? On the other way, what you want is to have a frame order, long-term, that will give you at least a base of activity, because you know what they consume, and you will be able to use your capacity. And with that is a win-win solution, giving you security, giving them a big improvement in operation. Then, how to convince your client? Use the buying process. Go through, agree on the problem, agree on the solution, the outcome, etc. Go on all that with him. The buying process is here. Now, second case, the constraint has moved. Suddenly, you discover that you had a constraint in your production, and you discover that it is now in your white collars, your knowledge workers. So how do you deal with that? Normally symptoms, you are facing difficulty to deliver, but you know that your production capacities are high enough. You have extra capacity. You have still the same capacity. Finished product are on stock, but you cannot deliver because it's lacking a document, record, administrative treatment, whatever. So what usually you will do? Aggressively expedite. Get a guy that will go with a whip and whip everybody to push them to not being late and to treat the issue. Well, this brings chaos. It will make a mess of your organization because it will change priority all the time. You know how it is because most of the people use expediting. Now, what TOC proposes you is to apply the 5 focusing steps. The first, identify the constraint. Find the guy where all the work is piling in front of it. If the guy is a constraint, he has a pile of documents in front of him. He cannot treat everything, so he's piling in front of him. If you don't find this, measure the capacity of each resource, the time to perform tasks, or use a current reality tree to find the root cause, because the constraint may not be physical. It may be a procedure, or it may be a rule, something like that. But then exploit the constraint. You don't want to use 1 minute of the constraint. So it should have always some work, not a pile of work, some work. Verify that that work that the constraint will do is of good quality. If the guy is someone who treats files, put someone before that will verify that all the files are completed. What you don't want is your constraint to begin to work on a file, discover that the file has some flaw and is not complete, send back the file to have someone complete it and then rework on it, because this will be totally a waste of his time. And you cannot afford to waste a minute of the constraint, because a minute of the constraint lost is lost for the whole company. You can, anything that is done by a constraint that could be done by a non-constraint, you should transfer to the non-constraint. Maybe they will not be so efficient. You don't care. They have capacity. You don't care. They are not limiting you. Use a Kanban board. It's a very useful tool to know what is the workload of your resources. Very efficient, very simple. Subordinate all to the previous decision, because whatever is gained and a non-constraint is worthless. Do not launch new file quicker than the constraint can treat them, because if not, it will begin piling and you will lose file, you will push everybody to multitasking, and it's not good. It is okay for a non-constraint to have downtime. If someone doesn't have work for half a day, it is the case. It can happen. If it's not a constraint, this is not an issue. If this is a constraint, this is a really big issue. The flow of work is important, not the productivity of each personnel. The productivity of the constraint is important, not of the not constraint. The flow through the system is what you have to follow, nothing else. Then elevate the constraint. Take a part of his work to non-constraint if you can, or train other people to increase the capacity. Add a second guy. Now, this is a very tricky one. You had a market. Your market is still here. You are still the same range of product, but you see the market have changed. What does it mean? The clients are not more purchasing like before. They're purchasing other things. They're purchasing things different. So your mix of product may be not so much relevant now. So the usual solution is what? You use cost accounting. You determine which is your most profitable product on the one that the client wants, and you focus on this one. Well, let me show you that TOC may have a different view, and this is quite spectacular. Let's do a short exercise. This is two products with different selling price, raw material, and one needs 1 hour on a machine, the other 4 hours same machine. Then you have the hour on machine A, B, C, and packaging, and the demand for each product is 20 units per week. Workers cost 15 euros per hour, one worker per machine plus one packaging. Now, let's make the calculation with cost accounting. We should sell the most profitable product. The profit per unit of products, this means sales cost minus material minus time on each machine multiplied by the cost of the worker, is 140 euros for product 1. For product 2, 202 euros. So visibly, you will choose to produce product 2. You know that you can sell 20 units per week. You have 40 hours on machine A. It takes 4 hours, so you can do 10. So 10, this means what? The sales are 4,000. The profit, full profit, is 1,200. And you can fire the operator of machine B because you are not using machine B and you are not producing anymore the product 1. This is what we tell you the things and how it works, how you work now. It is how this will work. Now, how it works normally. Throughput accounting is different. You look, can you serve the full market? 20 units 1, 20 units 2. No, you cannot, because on machine A, you have only 40 hours. So your constraint in machine A. The throughput means selling price minus raw material of product 1 is 200 euros. Throughput of product 2, 300 euros. Now divide this throughput by the number of hours that you use a constraint. This means what is the profit you generate for each hour of your constraint. For product 1 is 200 euros. For product 2 is 75 euros. So in fact, you should focus on product 1, which is a totally opposite conclusion than cost accounting. Product 1, we can produce 20 per week. But in fact, 20 per week takes only 20 hours. It remaining 20 hours. I can produce 5 of product 2. What this gives me? Sales 5,500 and profit 3,100. This means what? This means nearly 3 times the profit that cost accounting was advising me to make. And one thing more, your operator still have a job. You will receive copy of this, so you will be able to verify. But the idea is there. If you take into account your constraints and calculate, taking this into account, you get a much better sales result, profit. Now you understand how those 98 companies manage to get a 60% improvement in their profit by making the best they can in production, making the best of their bottleneck, and having the right mix of product and making the right decision. This is using throughput. This is why throughput accounting is really a powerful tool. Now, a little bonus. We all speak about business continuity, about resilience, and this, the bonus is important. TOC builds resilience. Resilience is a capacity of an organization to survive to disruptive events like disaster, and we really lived one now, and to reinvent itself to adapt to changing context. I did not invent that definition. It comes from an ISO standard, the ISO 22316, because resilience has an ISO standard, as business continuity has. It defines 9 axes, and without resilience, in fact, long-term vision are only wishful thinking. Why you should make a 5 or 10 years plan if you don't have the capacity to survive the next crisis? Resilience is the foundation of a viable vision of the future. And you have here, business continuity is a part of resilience. Now, what are those 9 axes? First, shared vision and clarity of purpose. Understanding and influencing context. This is really important now. The context is changing so quickly, you have to understand and be able to influence it. Effective and empowered leadership. Culture supportive of organizational resilience. Shared information and knowledge. Availability of resource and the best use of the resource. Development and coordination of management discipline. Supporting continuous improvement and ability to anticipate and manage change. And how the TOC answers to that? We all that. Shared vision, strategy and tactic tree. Understanding influencing concept, build a current reality tree and future reality tree, use the buying process to influence the context. The buying process is a very powerful tool. To understand it, current reality tree. Effective and empowered leadership, the strategic and tactic tree, throughput accounting, 5 focusing steps, allow to make the best of your leadership and to really align it and to make them, to have them the tools to make the good decision, like we have seen for the mix of product. Availability of resource, and then principle of TOCs for share information and culture supportive, but availability of resource, 5 focusing steps. You are making the best of your resource. Development and management discipline, 5 focusing steps, which is a virtuous circle. Throughput accounting, bring also really good discipline. Supporting continuous improvement, well, 5 focusing steps for continuous improvement. It's already in the name. Ability to anticipate and adapt change, current reality tree, future reality tree, and the transition tree and productivity tree. TOC supply all the tools, all the approach to build while improving your performance of operation. It brings you all the tools to build your resilience and to be sure that you will be able to face the next crisis and stand here, stand firm, strong, able to grow again. So the big question is, why so few people use TOC? Well, good question. First, the book, The Goal, is still one of the highest sales on Amazon. And we have a lot of success stories available on the internet. So indeed, why so few people use TOC Well, status quo is often perceived as the safest alternative by managers. It's always difficult to go against what you have been taught in your university. TOC may seem difficult, complicated, from time to time it's presented by so-called experts in a way that is very difficult to understand and say, oh, I would like to use, but it seems so difficult. It's so difficult to understand how to actually implement it. TOC conflict with commonly accepted ideas about management. Look what's happened with cost accounting and the mix of product. Bad definition of pilot project. Many people say, okay, we will start on something very little. Perfect, you improve that thing little, but that thing doesn't have any impact on the profit. So you can say, okay, you improve something, but we don't know how to measure and it doesn't have any impact. So you are not able to convince the remaining of the organization to implement on a wider scale. And there's a lot of tools. I present them quickly. You understand that to manage them and to master them, you must train with them, and it can be a little bit long. And it's not always easy to understand how they articulate. I tried to show you, for example, that drum buffer rope was linked with 5 focusing steps. It seems like all this is linked, but it may be a little bit difficult for people beginning to use TOC. And another thing, when I tell you, look, do you know that you have a system that can increase your profit by 60%? Where you will look and okay, what is a scam? This, yeah, I have it. I have it. I receive some scam from Uganda every week in my email. So now it's maybe when we advertise this like that, results are too good to be true, but the only problem that the results are that too good and they are true. So what is the way forward for someone who wants to use TOC? I will not say that it will be easy, because this context will be complicated and you will be attracted by many things that is outside that may prevent you from efficiently use TOC. TOC methodology is very simple, very logic, but it will conflict with several commonly accepted ideas. The first people who will conflict with you will be your accountant, because he will not understand what you are doing. For sure. At least mine was my first conflict. I fired him. In fact, I had another one. Several companies have already taken that path and they found great reward. So it works and it's not so complicated. Maybe you have to find a guide. Maybe you have to read and apply. Maybe you have to find your own way. But these are very good ideas and very efficient. The context is so new. This new context is so new. You have to reinvent yourself. What you were doing before, sorry, I was seeing a comment arriving. So the context is so new that you have to reinvent yourself. You have to invent your company, what your company will look like in that new context. Don't let management concepts that were not adapted to be your constraints. In conclusion, the situation is the first of its kind. We never knew that. And this needs a change in the approach. And TOC may be that change in the approach. Companies shall reinvent themselves, find new ways of managing. If your methods have shown that they were inefficient, don't try to do it stronger. It's not by doing harder what you were doing before that the outcome will change. It will only be more and more difficult. If you enter in cost-cutting mode, like the cost accounting is telling you, you are starting a vicious circle toward a limited opportunity future. It will limit you. Your constraint will be your approach of cost-cutting. TOC offers all the necessary and sufficient tools to optimize your operation, and it can even help you to grow again. Don't be the constraint of your company by fearing to succeed. It's really only needing one step, one call, one read in order to start a trip to succeed. Business is like a rugby game or a relay race. You need to have an aligned teamwork and focus on flow. And this is how you can win. So this is what I wanted to tell you. And now I will go to the questions. So first question is, in which way TOC can be integrated in fixed practice of Lean Six Sigma and Agile methodology to that we get a fluid improvement system. So TOC is not against Lean Six Sigma. Six Sigma is really useful when you want to develop, to discover what is a bottleneck, to make some statistics about how to follow it and how to manage it. If you have a process a little bit complicated, Lean, eliminating waste is a very good thing, because by eliminating waste, you will decrease the work in progress. You will also eliminate some work through the bottleneck, and this will help the bottleneck to be more efficient. So you will participate to elevate and to exploit the bottleneck on a better way. So Lean Six Sigma totally work in that. Agile is a methodology of project management. But nevertheless, if you have a process, if you are in a multi-project environment and you use Agile on another one, you have for sure somewhere a bottleneck that makes that many of your projects remain stalled in the pipeline. And all those projects stalled means money, sales that are not made, delays, multitasking, loss of time. And there is a way that I didn't present here, which is called synchronized portfolio management, that in fact use somehow the drum buffer rope, but adapted to project, especially in software production or in knowledge management, in order to improve the portfolio and to work on the flow of such a portfolio. Let me bring the question here. And so you can use the Agile methodology, the Lean Six Sigma, together with TOC in order to get really an improvement, a global improvement system that will recognize that your system is limited by one constraint, but with the help of the tools given by Lean Six Sigma, by Agile, we'll find the way to exploit the constraint, subordinate all the remaining to the decision of exploiting the constraint, and maybe elevate the constraint. These are tools that really works well together. I hope that I answered to the question. I hope that it fully answers your question. But if you want to discuss this more later, it will be with pleasure. Is there any other question? No question? No? No more question? So I thank you very much to have participated to that webinar. I'm launching now a poll. If you can answer to it, it should be good. It's about how you feel about that webinar, but also what kind of webinar, how to organize new webinar later. So if you could answer to that, I will really appreciate. Well, in the meantime, I think that I thank you very much. If you have any other questions that come later, you can contact me either on LinkedIn, either on by email or by telephone. No issue on that. and I will try to answer all your questions. I thank you very much, and I wish you a good evening. See you on the next one.